Welcome to Uxbridge Beat, the podcast where we feature the who's who of Uxbridge, Ontario. My name is Jennifer Nephew-Campsell.
And I am Scott Campsell. You may have already heard of Restore the Roar, the campaign to bring a football program back to Uxbridge Secondary School. Set to begin this September, Restore the Roar has been the brainchild of Michael Kerford and Andy Lekonen, but they have on board with them a local CFL star.
Jeff Keeping will be the head coach of the new program at USS, and he is clearly the perfect person for the job. Born and raised in Uxbridge, Jeff enjoyed a professional career in the CFL and is looking forward to bringing that expertise to his hometown.
Since we recorded this interview, the campaign has already surpassed their goal to raise the $50,000 they were looking for. But who is Jeff Keeping and how does he envision the program with him at the helm? Well, let's find out as he shares what puts the beat into his football-loving heart. We should have done this ages ago when we were talking about interviewing really cool people in Uxbridge, and why would we not get a former Toronto Argonaut on our podcast? So thank you very much, Jeff, for coming here.
Oh, thanks for having me on.
You are on a really special mission right now to bring football back to Uxbridge Secondary School. Tell us about yourself, first of all, and your connection to the high school.
A bit about myself, obviously from Uxbridge, and grew up here, went to public school here, and then went to Uxbridge High. And from there went on to university and had my first introduction to football at Uxbridge Secondary School. And that set the course for a path that I had no idea about, but learned the game of football, was introduced to it, had some great experiences, went on to university to play football, and then was fortunate enough to be drafted into the CFL by the Toronto Argonauts from there, and played 12 years in the CFL and was super proud to win a Grey Cup with the Argonauts in 2012, which was the 100th Grey Cup. And it was in Toronto, which was part of the special part of it, that I had so many family and friends from Uxbridge get to come be a part of that. So that was huge. And now, here we are, many years later, trying to get this football program back to schools to hopefully give some of our kids in Uxbridge that same experience.
So was this your idea or were you roped into it?
I will absolutely not take credit that it was my idea. There's a big team behind this, but it's led primarily by Michael Kerford, who is an Uxbridge boy who had left and come back and now finds himself back in the community he grew up in with his kids going to school here. And so he had the brainchild rights to this idea and really did a lot of the heavy lifting of organizing and planning and budgeting and doing all those things that needed to be done before we even whispered the idea of it coming out. So he did a lot of that work. And Andy Lekonen, who runs the Body Fit gym in Uxbridge, him and Michael got together and they've really formulated the fundraising plan and got that all off the ground. And then Michael came and talked to me and we had a couple meetings, and it was one of those things that there's just so many benefits to having our kids involved with whatever activities it is, that this is maybe one of those opportunities where football's such an inclusive sport, just takes such a big roster, so many kids, there's a spot for everybody, right? Whatever size you are, that we thought it was really important and the timing was right to try and get this back going.
Was it strictly money that shut down football originally? Was it just a lack of funds?
I don't think so. I don't have the facts on exactly why, but I think youth sports in general is a huge volunteer commitment, and football specifically does take a lot of coaches. So it could have been a timing thing. I don't want to speculate on why, but I think between needing a lot of coaches, football's an expensive sport because of the equipment. The helmets are very expensive. So I'm sure that was part of it as well. And part of it is the kids. I mean, we know that sports, different activities go through waves. I saw it in the baseball system in Uxbridge, and some of that stuff is a little bit cyclical. And I think now we're just finding there's a lot more interest around football, and flag football's really taken off in the elementary schools. My first introduction, anything to do with football, was high school, where now we have kids playing competitive flag football in elementary school. So I think there's more of a natural feeder system from that. And flag football is becoming an Olympic sport. NFL is obviously a huge marketing machine, and kids are littered in NFL gear. But between NFL and CFL, I think there's just a bit more buzz around football. So it could be just one of those things where there's a healthy momentum behind it that I think works well with trying to get it back going.
Football versus rugby. Rugby's huge in the high schools, both for boys and for girls. Is this going to be in competition with rugby, or do you think it would complement the program?
In general, the athletics at Uxbridge Secondary are outstanding, which is pretty exciting because you just know there's this great base of athletes that are doing a great job in all their respective sports. So one thing that I know is important for our group, you don't want to have a negative impact on another program. So that is definitely on our radar, and we don't think it will. Football is a fall sport. Rugby 15s is a spring sport. They do rugby sevens in the fall as well, but just like the name, rugby sevens is a 7-man competition on the field. So the numbers aren't the same as rugby 15s, where if you had rugby 15s and football going at the same time, there would be more competition for those athletes. But I think, anybody who plays rugby, I'm hoping is going to want to play football too. And I really hope that we can complement the rugby program as well by turning some kids that maybe have never played football before, but they come out and have a good time and get a little bit of that competitive bug. And then the rugby coaches see them show up in the spring for rugby 15s.
What about the other schools? Are there other schools with football programs right now to be able to play against?
Yep. So we've got, I believe, 4. I could pull it up on my phone, but so there's like O'Neill, Dwyer, Holy Trinity, there'll be us. I think I'm missing one. So there is a couple more programs. Brooklyn High, which wasn't around when I was going to high school, but they're now, and they have a football program. And actually, when we reached out to the convener, when I say we, it was Michael reaching out to the convener. There's a couple other schools in the pipeline that are trying to do the same thing that we're doing by getting a junior program going first for 2 years and then moving into a senior and junior. And I don't think we were on their radar as a potential school to bring football back, but they're super excited to hear our name in the mix. And now that we're going, hopefully there's us and some of those other schools that have traditionally had football programs are able to get theirs going again. And I think before you know it, you could be right back to 8 schools competing in Durham and just getting that more kids involved.
I played flag football in high school because there was no girls football team. Is there still not going to be a girls football team?
So this is not men's or boys football. This is the Uxbridge Secondary School football team. It's a co-ed activity. And if people come out and try out, it's going to be open for anybody to come and take a stab at playing, learning, and growing.
I like that. How much money are you guys looking for? What do you need?
So our initial raise, we've launched a GoFundMe, and our goal was $50,000. It does sound like a steep goal and a high number, but we have, as I mentioned, the time and the work that's gone into the background was really all about doing this right from the start. And Michael put together a 10-year budget. So because we want to launch a sustainable program, right? It's not about being a flash in the pan and coming out for a couple of years. This is about building something that if kids want to come out and play, that it's going to have a long runway and that they can really grow in the game. So the $50,000 allows for us to buy this initial purchase of equipment to launch our junior team this fall, in which we'll have grade 9s and 10s able to compete. And then once they move into senior, we're looking in 2 years, we'll then be repurchasing another set of equipment, because then you basically double your equipment buy. So this fundraise allows us to let these kids that come out now in 9 and 10 know we're going to have equipment for them when they're seniors, and we're going to be able to have both teams running and have them in great equipment, able to go out and compete, feel safe and be protected, while providing them, with all the opportunities to bus to these road games and give them the experience that a lot of people had at Uxbridge High. We're hoping to bring that back.
What about the school board? Do they support it? Do they financially contribute?
I can't speak on the finances, but all I can say is from the get-go, we had meetings at the school level and with the school leadership. They were very supportive from the get-go, knowing the opportunity it provides the kids if you can do it right. And I think they were very receptive once they saw the plan, that this wasn't just about like, we're going guns a-blazing, just green light, and then we'll figure it out. It was like, all that work's been done. So if you say yes, and we can fundraise this, then it's going to be done the right way. So they were very, very supportive. They got behind it and took it to the board level. And at the board level, they approved it. We have all of their approval pending us having a successful fundraise. So then that becomes, now it's on us, which has been exciting to see the positivity around it as soon as we launched the GoFundMe. I think we're currently just below 40,000 of our $50,000 raise. So that says a lot about the people in the community, and that the value that these people who are donating money see in the game and what it can do for the kids and the youth in the community and the opportunities it can provide.
What's the fundraising goal? So you're looking at a GoFundMe account now. Is the team that you're going to recruit, are they responsible for fundraising for, like you're saying, you need senior football equipment? So are you trying to go independent, or is this something where you're going to constantly have an account that people can contribute to? Or how much is the community expected to be involved compared to how much are you going to be independent after you get running?
So the way football works across Durham region with the schools, there is some player fees, but I think that's consistent with all the other sports as well. So it's not something new or uncommon. And we want to fundraise so that we can make sure our fees are below average of what's going on, because we'd never want costs to be a reason that a kid can't play. We want to make sure that there's something there so that we can help make sure kids that want to play can play. And again, we wanted to fundraise with the great momentum right out of the gates that we do have enough to purchase that equipment in 2 years, and we're not going back for another big raise. So trying to be responsible with that and make sure it's done right from the get-go. And some equipment that's unique that the player keeps, like from mouth guards and girdles, that type of stuff, that'll stay there. So as long as they take care of that stuff, they could have it for all 4 years they're playing, so they won't have to repurchase each year their practice jersey, game jersey. But those like the helmets, the shoulder pads, the big ticket items that really run up the biggest number, that are the bulk of our costs, those will be stuff that we have sourced out, gotten different quotes for, making sure we're being responsible with those dollars that come in to purchase really good equipment that we'll then gift to the school, so that type of stuff gets reused.
Your own personal football career, why did you retire?
Oh, it was a mix of just being too dang old and kids and family. By the end of my career, I was in my 12th year, and we had taken my family out to Winnipeg for my last year. So I played 10 years in Toronto, 1 year in Montreal in the middle of that 10. After my first 3 years in Toronto, I went to Montreal, then came back to Toronto and went until 2015 in Toronto. And in 2016, we went to Winnipeg and had a tremendous experience. I wouldn't change it for the world. We had such a good time with the family out there. And it was a different football experience. Football in the prairies is a different animal. It's kind of like being a Maple Leafs fan in Toronto, which was very cool. It was awesome to be a part of. But I knew I was getting closer to the end than I was to the beginning. And our oldest son was about to start school. So you start thinking about, it's one of these games that it's finite. So it's not always in your control. I did get injured in my last year in training camp and kind of rehabilitated that back until I would be able to play if they needed me, but it was almost in kind of a mentor role. And then I had a surgery at the end of that season and was feeling good and healthy. But ultimately, we had kind of thought about moving back to Uxbridge, both my wife and I's hometown, and putting some roots down and starting our oldest in kindergarten back in Uxbridge. So ultimately, it came down to that. And I had applied to the Uxbridge Volunteer Fire Department at the same time. And it was like, well, maybe if I can get on that, that was a road that I had thought about as my next career. And if that was something that came through, that would help make our decision. And that came through. And, we moved back to Uxbridge June of 2017. And that's kind of how we got back integrated into the community here.
And now you're firefighting as a full-time career?
Yep. So I got on Uxbridge Fire Department, and they put me through training, back to school, doing courses on weekends, nights, whatever it took. And they also have a comprehensive in-house program that trained me up. From there, I was fortunate. I got hired on to Richmond Hill Fire and Emergency Services as a full-time firefighter. So I've been there since January of 2020. To me, it's as close as being in the locker room as you can be without having to hit your head against anybody.
On purpose.
Yeah, on purpose, yeah. But no, it's been a great way for me to transition out of the game. And it's still that some adrenaline, very physical in nature, team based. So it's been a great fit for me. Yeah.
So for you going back into a football environment as a coach, this must be so thrilling for you.
Yeah, it is very exciting. And, at first, everybody's so busy, right? And I don't think I'm any busier than anyone else, but we've got 3 young boys that are very active, involved in all kinds of activities. So you go in a lot of directions, but the more I spoke with Michael and thought about this opportunity, I just thought it's a pretty unique situation and a really great fit and an awesome way to give back to something that gave me such a giant opportunity and really redirected the course of my life. Here I am back in Uxbridge. You couldn't say no. And not that I wanted to, but it's just, I think it's a great opportunity. And I think there's so much growth that can happen in the game. It's something we hope that nobody's intimidated to just come out on day one, knowing that so many people have showed up on their first day of high school and come out for a football team and just become such a better student, teammate, friend, that we want to make sure if there's an opportunity that we can help drive this, that we give those kids that opportunity.
Maybe they'll bring a cheerleading team back then too.
Well, that's what we get talking about. The more we talk about it, and Michael talked about at the high school reunion, how so many conversations came back to football, and it wasn't necessarily just about the games. It was like, do you remember the cheerleaders out at the games, the band playing, pep rallies? And it's really about community and bringing people together. It's not just about one sport, and it's not about one sport competing against another. It's like, how do we continue? The Uxbridge High School, the community's done such a good job. It is so close knit. It still has that small town feel. How do we add to that, right? And we just see football as hopefully this catalyst to continue to drive what they've already done such a great job with the athletics there. We just want to add. We're not looking to carve out anything unique. In fact, we just hope we can keep up and follow and play hard with these other teams that are doing such a good job.
Hey Uxbridge, when I first opened Okami Kai Martial Arts and Fitness in September of 1999, we only had a small dojo with tiny change rooms, and we only offered karate classes. We now have a 3,000 square foot training facility, and that's not including our spacious change rooms with showers inside Body Fit Health Club. We still offer karate, but we also offer classes in Aikido, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and weapons including Japanese sword. We also have great fitness classes that'll keep you motivated to take your training to the next level. As much as I'm proud of these accomplishments, our biggest success is in our programs for children. We're not just happy with kids winning medals, we want them to win at life. That means increasing their focus, self-discipline, self-confidence, and self-esteem, and not just their self-defense skills. We haven't slowed down in our almost 25 years of operation. We've gotten bigger, better, and we're just getting started. Now is the time for you and your family to get started along with us. Contact us today at Okami Kai Martial Arts and Fitness at okamikai.com. Do you still have contacts with CFL players or management or anything like that?
Yeah, well, what's funny, as you get older, rather than having lots of guys that are still playing that I played with, a lot of them are now coaches and management or involved in scouting and all different stuff like that. So yeah.
So you're a benefit to a team, not just because of the fact that obviously you've got football experience, but if someone were to go through high school playing football, you could actually sort of give them a leg up and go beyond the high school football game. Am I right with that? Or
hopefully, that's the goal. If you get one kid that goes to university that otherwise wouldn't have because he played high school football, then we've succeeded. Now the goal is obviously hopefully more. But I know, when I think back, I was a young kid, hockey, baseball, playing all these different sports. And I ended up going out for football just for fun, something I had absolutely no base of knowledge, didn't know the rules, had never played football before I went to high school and got introduced to it. And I hope that I would have gone to university either way, but playing high school football and then getting recruited to go to university, it was definitely my way to continue playing sports still at a highly competitive level was to go play university football. And that's what directed me to go into Western. And then from there was super lucky and got drafted by the Argos. But there's just from showing up to.
You navigated all that yourself, or was there somebody that was sort of mentoring you along and saying, this is what I would do if you want to pursue this?
I don't know that there was necessarily any one person, but it was like I had a high school football coach in Brian Minorick that was like, you're doing pretty well at this. And then when a couple schools started talking to me, it was like, well, I can go for a visit at this university and this university. They want to recruit me to play football. And this was all new to me. And I was still thinking that I could be a hockey player, even though probably 99% of people were telling me that I wasn't going to be one. But, and then Paul Connolly came to the high school and saw something in me and talked to me about playing football and rugby. And I ended up playing rugby, which I also had never played before, and got to go to Europe with the rugby team on rugby tour. And those were all hugely formative in developing me as an athlete. Those experiences in high school rugby and football, changed who I was and drove me to go play university football.
So what role can we play now to help you guys the best?
So you guys and everyone that's really passionate about our community, which has been so great, is we've reached out to people, and equally people have been reaching out to us and the team that's kind of behind this. And it's really just about spreading the word. And it's people that believe in sport and activity for our youth. We're just trying to get the word out there. We've asked people in the community to kind of lean in with us. The best way people can lean in right now is with our fundraising effort. We're so close. We want to reach that goal. So if we hit that number with our GoFundMe, like I said, the school leadership and the board's been so supportive. We just have to get those finances in order so that we can provide everything the kids need.
Are we looking at a deadline? Like, you obviously want to get going in the fall of this year.
Yeah, so we're in the schedule. We're playing football this fall. We need to get over the hump with this last 10K or so, just so, like I said, we can ensure that those funds are there so that we can order that equipment again when we go from our junior team that'll run 2024 and 25 to when they become seniors, that we've got that budget and money there to purchase the equipment for them to play in the gear as seniors. And then we already have that gear for the juniors coming in.
We do a thing, we call it rapid fire, and it's not really rapid fire. It's just, we ask you sort of isolated questions. If you want to expand on the answers, then go ahead. But we're sort of looking for like impulse answers at first, and then I don't know, it just sort of takes off from there. So first question, dogs or cats?
Dogs.
Winter or summer?
Oh, that's really hard. That one I can expand on, because for my 12 years when I was playing in the CFL, I was working all summer, right? You don't get many days off. So winter for me was my off season. So that's when you'd have some downtime, more time to kind of spend and catch up with family and friends, and maybe a holiday or something here and there, or hobbies like ice fishing, snowmobiling, that kind of thing. So I love the winter, but man, that first summer, once I retired, was pretty sweet.
I can socialize with people and it's warm.
Yeah. So now that I've been out since, that summer of 2017, I can remember that first July at my parents' house in the garden. And you're just like, this is kind of cool, especially when it was during training camp, when the guys were going through a grueling heat of training camp, and I'm just kind of hands and knees picking weeds. So that was, nice. That's a hard one for me. I love them both.
Nice. What was the best part of your job as a football player?
Best part of my job as a football player? That's a really good question. Maybe two answers. Was being part of a team. It's really hard to replace that feeling of being part of something where you're working towards something that's so much bigger than yourself that you cannot get to on your own. And being a part of either someone else's mission to their goal and then being part of yours and knowing how much it matters to each other. That's the team for me is just the ultimate thing. So yeah. And then on the other side of that, is football is a physical sport, and the combat, there's not many professions where you go to work and you get to, tackle and hit people and, not get in trouble.
I hear you.
That was, so that was fun too. I won't lie.
What was the worst part of your job as a football player?
Oh, not reaching your goal. It's hard to put into words how intense each day is. And football is very, very unique. And it's unique in a great way that it teaches you that delayed gratification, which I think so many kids need to learn. But football specifically to a lot of the other mainstream sports, the practice to play ratio is really, really high on practice. So you have to love the process. You have to really love showing up with your teammates and putting in the work. Because you can practice 5 or 6 days to when you get to finally play that game. And you got to be willing to put that work in on those 5 or 6 days to get the result you want on that one game. Where some of these other sports, you have a down game, you got 2 more that week. Football is like you got 1 game that week, and all the work you put in is going to show up or not. And at the pro level, is that last game. If you're not winning the championship and you're losing and you look around that room, it's never the same.
Second place isn't
yeah.
first place.
And you don't get to go try next year with the same group of guys. It's just the nature of the beast that guys retire, guys go to different teams in free agency, guys get traded. So that room is never the same. So that last day, if it's not ending the way you want it to, which unfortunately more often than not it doesn't, that's the toughest for sure.
What's the stress like compared to playing professionally compared to amateur? Like, is it way deeper? Because you think now it's your career.
Yeah, it is different. I mean, in sports, everyone uses analogies like going to war and that kind of thing. And I had a pro coach who had so much respect for the military and people that do make those type of sacrifices that would say we're not going to war, but your brother you're going to work with and that you have to battle with is paying his mortgage based off his performance. And, you have all those grown up adult responsibilities now that you don't have as an amateur, bills to pay, you're saving for your kids' education, you're doing all those things. And it's all based on your performance. And now you're a team. So you're counting on the guys in your room to help support your mission and your career. So it's just a completely different ballgame that way from amateur to pro in terms of your responsibilities as an adult.
Do you think the fans lose sight of that? Where you're watching, people talk about the Toronto Maple Leafs and they haven't won a cup since '67 and how awful is it hockey team. But meanwhile, these are all professional hockey players that are doing exactly what you're saying. They're trying to make money. They don't want to just win. They want to survive. So do you think the fans lose sight of that?
Potentially. I think there's some fans that are very dialed in to how it works and the feeling players have. And I'm sure there's some that are a little bit naive to it, but that's probably the same as all different industries and the knowledge people have about what people actually do with their jobs in different roles. So there is some of that. And I think that changes and it's different in different leagues. Because you take the Maple Leafs, for instance, and some people, oh, well, he's making X millions of dollars, so it shouldn't matter. He should be able to perform at whatever level. But like you said, at the end of the day, one thing that is common between amateur and pro, I don't think any athlete shows up and wants to do a bad job. If they're not reaching their full potential, it's well, this is where I'm hoping I can come in. Let's coach them better. What tools can we give them to reach their full potential? That's all you want to draw out in people. So yeah, I think everybody shows up, amateur or pro, wanting to do a great job.
What's your favorite CFL team right now?
Oh, geez, that's hard. I obviously have a bias and allegiance to the Argos because that was the bulk of my career and winning a championship with them, and they drafted me. But I also, when we're not cheering for the Argos, we also cheer for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers because my very good friend and former teammate Michael Shea is the head coach there. And we played together in Toronto. He's an all-time Argo. And then he coached me with the Argos. And then he brought me to Winnipeg when he was coaching and I was a player. And we had such a good time there with our boys in Winnipeg and playing there and the experience. And then I also have a great friend who's the GM of the Ottawa Red Blacks. So we cheer hard for them too. So we find ourselves, sometimes cheering for people instead of teams.
Right.
Which
and
I think is
who
probably...
are you not cheering for?
Nobody in particular, to be honest. I think, a healthy competitive CFL is good for all the teams, right? You never actually want to see a terrible team because that's not good for the teams you cheer for. So
unless you're playing against them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Rules are different.
Yeah, that's different. As a fan, I just like to see everybody healthy and competitive and, lots of butts in the seats taken in games.
What's your favorite restaurant in Uxbridge?
Oh, favorite restaurant in Uxbridge. You put me on the spot. I do love my food too. So who am I going to go with? I'm trying to think who my kids will not give me flack. We do eat a lot of chicken wings at our house.
Who's got the best chicken wings?
I'd say the most wings we eat are from Wixons and Wing Riders, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's who we find ourselves ordering wings from the most.
What's your greatest achievement so far?
Oh, my family, by far. Super proud of my 3 boys. I think it comes back to earlier talking about like the whole thought about moving back to Uxbridge was like, we had our 2 boys while we were in Winnipeg. And it was like, we just feel so strongly about this town and this community. And we love our boys so much that we wanted them to have that same experience. And yeah, they're by far my best achievement.
What's your biggest regret?
Honestly, and this is not made up, I would have taken more courses while I was in university. When you're that age, it's hard to put in perspective that you don't get to do it over. And now that I'm past, I shouldn't say you can go back to school anytime. And I did go back to school to finish up my degree, but I think I just would have taken either a max or a plus course load or even done some summers while you were there, just because you're there, you're in it. And funny enough, I would sometimes even take a bit lighter course load during football season, but football was so structured. My grades were always better during season than after because you just had these places to be and workouts and practice that the time management was actually easier in football season. Did
you like school?
I did. Yeah. Yep. I had a great experience at Western. I did enjoy it.
What did you study?
I went to Western to study kinesiology because I was just kind of had my head just fully wrapped in sports. And that was kind of everything around anatomy, human movement, all those things. On my recruiting trip down there, I actually, one of the orthopedic surgeons, that was something maybe in the back of my head, brought me in on a surgery. So that was a very cool experience. So I was kind of thinking about that kind of thing. But then funny enough, I ended up really enjoying the reading around psychology. So I shifted gears and I took a bunch of business courses in psychology. Yeah, so a quick pivot after my first year. Yeah, but I do really enjoy the psychology and especially now sports psychology and just like human performance. I guess it came back to performance, but maybe just not the physical side. Who's
someone that's alive now that you'd like to spend some time with? Sit down and have a coffee and pick their brain.
Alive.
Mm-hmm.
I think you've stumped me here.
Maybe the Brooklyn football coach to see how you can beat them.
I'm drawing.
Drawing a blank?
Yeah.
So who's somebody maybe that's passed away who you'd like to have a little bit more time with? Another conversation.
I think I would say my mom's dad, my grandfather on my mom's side. He passed away. He was a platoon chief with Toronto Fire. And my dad also was a firefighter. So I think that's where I had the fire bug in the back of my head. But obviously my grandfather never got to see the path that he was alive when I was drafted. And the last kind of visit I had with him was before I went to training camp, and him saying like, you'll be fine. But to kind of have a conversation now after
so different,
the journey we've gone down. Yeah. And be able to ask some of those questions relating to the fire service and leadership and that kind of thing would be cool.
We'll circle back around to the coffee with the person who's alive and make sure that you say your wife.
Yeah. She'd have to be willing too.
Oh.
We're gonna interview. We'll interview her next.
She's probably had enough coffees with me.
When you pass away and you go to heaven, what do you hope God says to you?
I hope he says that you've been a good person, you served others, you're a good husband, father, son, brother, and that you had an impact on people.
What's your ultimate dream with this football team? Michael came over to you and said, "You want to coach?" I'm sure you thought about it, but there was something in the back of your head that there must be some, not a fantasy, I don't think that's the right word for it, but is there something where you just envision that you're going to accomplish something with this team? What's that thing that's in the back of your head that your goal, your personal goal for this?
For me, honestly, I will consider it a huge success. And it comes back to what I mentioned earlier. If we can get a few more kids that fall in love with a game and that game takes them to somewhere they wouldn't have otherwise gone. And if that's university, then I think that is amazing, because I think whatever game, whatever activity people pick or whatever their hobby or sport is can be a benefit and can help lead them somewhere or put them into a network of a group of friends or a team that then looks after them and helps them and makes them feel bigger than they would feel on their own. And yeah, I just hope the game maybe carries a couple people further than they could have got without it.
Thanks for spending the time with us. We wish you and the Uxbridge Secondary School football team huge success. And I hope that you stay long enough to see your boys in the program so that when you're coaching, you're so embarrassing, Dad.
I get that already. But no, thank you for having me on. Thank you to everybody who has already contributed to our GoFundMe. There's so many people that have been willing and have stepped in and leaned in with us. And it doesn't happen on our own without people being willing to like have me on like you guys are to get the word out there. We really can't do it by ourselves. And it takes a village. And we just feel fortunate that our village is Uxbridge and that so many people are willing to lean in.
This was such a cool interview. He walks into a football practice just randomly, just decides to go into a football practice, and it totally changes his entire life. There's what the theory of parallel universes and what happened if he didn't go to the football practice? Like just the fact that, okay, it spins into him going into university and then playing for the CFL, and now he's coaching the local football team. Have you got anything where you can say that moment right there changed everything?
A conducting class for me. I had no interest in being a conductor. I thought I was going to be a professional performer, and my first conducting class, it was an orchestral conducting class that I took, changed the entire trajectory of what I wanted to do with music.
So like, how crazy is that? So if you just decided that one day, like for me, my first karate instructor had a school on Brock Street, actually right next to where the post office is. I'm really close to there. And I just happened to walk by, saw a sign, $20 intro, included two private classes, a uniform. I think there was a little crest that they advertised that, the handbook. And I went, well, $20, I can afford that. And that's totally what changed my life. I still remember after we did the intros and they gave me the prices and everything, looking at the agreement that I had signed to, like, it was all me paying for it. And I remember looking at it going, what have you done? You're signed up for a year. Oh, wow. A whole year. And almost 30 years later, and here we are.
So Jeff wants to be able to give that opportunity to students at USS now, too. Hopefully just to change the trajectory and bring a positive sporting moment for their lives and to add to what USS already has that's great about their sporting programs.
Yeah. So how cool is that? And so not only is he into it, Michael's into it, Andy's into it, but I guess a whole bunch of people in the town are into it because we're over $50,000. Last I heard it was over $52,000, $5,000 donated by the Rotary Club. So I think the community wants football.
I can't wait to see how it unfolds. Good luck.
Restore the roar. This has been a Capsule Broadcasting production. It's a good thing the fundraising goal got reached. They were talking about putting me on a campaign poster. I was into it, but the cheerleading outfit was a little too tight for me.